Hello and welcome to I don't know, it'll be so much a mini series, it might be an epic, I don't know yet, we'll see how it goes. But it's a series when I'm talking about iconic bits of gear and equipment. And first up, I've got a little treat because I've dragged this out of the shadows, and it's an orange Rocker 30 from 2008. And today we're going to be talking about orange amps. Obviously, we're going to be talking about orange amps, and we're going to be talking about why and how they became the darlings of the indie and alt rock merchants. There's not a festival stage where you don't see one of these things really these days. But back in the day, 1968, Orange were formed by Clifford Cooper in the West End of London. And he brought in a guy called Matt Mathias to produce them, who was a northerner. And you may have heard of Matt amps. They are related to Orange, but that was his own set of designs and amps that came later, really. The Matt amps, they are closely related, but they're not the same thing. They're not under the Orange banner or anything like that. So Orange, 1968, what do? You want to get noticed, you're starting a guitar amp company. So what do? You make everything bright and orange. Who wouldn't? No, I would. And of course, the logo there, very funky, psychedelic, late 60s design there. The badge that always seems to fox people. The voice of the world, it says on there and all that, but it looks like some kind of Stella Artois lager thing, doesn't it? But it's always been there, always part of the Orange thing. And the Tolex, I mean, you see them occasionally in black, but in orange, it's an orange, it's got to be orange. So really, in the early 70s, you had bands like Wishbone Ash. That's when I first came across them as a kid. Seen pictures of Wishbone Ash on stage with big Marshall. You see Marshall, we'll talk about Marshall in a minute. Big orange stacks on the stage there, and you can't really miss those things and the sounds they were getting out of it. Well, coming to the Marshall thing, in the sort of early noughties, I had a Marshall DSL 40. Didn't get on with it at all. Rubbish. The first iterations I didn't think were very good, mainly due to the speaker. So I got rid of that and decided I wanted to keep with the combo valve thing. So I brought this fella in. And plugging it in, it's quite interesting. The first thing I did was try and get a few AC/DC tones. Let's have a little goosey on it. I'll switch to the dirty channel. It's a dirty channel. Well, it doesn't really sound like a Marshall, and I had played plenty of Oranges before that, but till you really get one home and you start playing and experimenting, you'd realise that they're different beasts. With the Orange sound, to me, it's hard to describe. A Marshall sound, you can say it's all mid-range grind, that real push sound we're all familiar with on a million rock records. Orange, that mid-range is a little bit different. A lot of top end on it, quite a fizzy, almost fuzzy top end to these amps. And you've got a little more bottom maybe on these than the Marshalls, but that mid-range, it sits lower in there. It's more subtle, and it's, as people say, it's orange, so it's fruity, a fruity mid-range. So the differences are there. Can you get an Orange to do the Marshall thing? Does it matter? you sort of can, and they do other models. Some of the bigger heads, some of the big valve heads there, they clean up a little bit into that janglier, crunchy territory. But the distinctive sound to me is just that barkingness. So it's almost like there's a little bit of a fuzz box on the growls and it rasps. That's the guitar volumes on 10. This is obviously in the dirty channel. Now, this is the one problem I have with the orange amps, and I'm not for a moment expect they've been designed to do this, but you back them off. Cleans up a bit, but it's not massive, and that is the one thing. If you like that crunchy sound backing off on the guitar volume, orange amps, they do a couple of hand-wired ones, for example, that'll do that a bit better than that. But for most of the range, it's an all or nothing thing. That's the policy, I think, of Orange. But let's go back to those earlier amps. They were huge 100-watt designs, just huge headroom, a bit more akin to the sort of Marshall stacks of the time, I would suppose. But again, that mid-range is totally different. So they've had a checkered history of Orange. They've been up, down, a lot of issues. Sort of you wonder whether they're going to survive, and then they've come back with more designs and they've gone disappeared again and come back. But in the noughties, they really started to get their act together when Orange Aid Emsley, he started designing, I suppose, a new generation of orange amps, of which this is one. And this has got on its preamp stage and the dirty side, it's got 3 preamp stages on it, so you can go pretty bonkers with it. I'm just on about 7 now, which is how I like it. I'll go flat out on it now. Police today. Right, so that was on the gain on flat, and if we take it to sort of halfway, so it's only the early parts, maybe first part of the gain stage. Tune there, but never mind. If we go back just on a couple, really back in the room. So yeah, you can get it a little bit wound down, but that's not really what Orange is for, in my opinion. So we'll go back to what I normally set at about 7, and we'll do the old Saxon riff again. On the floor, got the Thorpy Muffroom cloud, so we can just look at the fuzzier side of this amp. So Thorpy pedal off. Flipping awesome. So yeah, I think, you know, alt rock indie guys there, doom metalers, and you've got guys like Jim Root of Slipknot using orange. He's used them for quite a while now. You want that real big sound there, almost fuzzy top end, driving big sound. The orange amps, great. And they do some ones that clean up. I do a tremolo one now and a few other things, but for me, orange, it's in your face. Great stuff. This amp, 30 watts. It's the loudest 30 watts in a 112 cabinet I've ever heard. It is ludicrously loud. And when I was gigging with it regularly, I used to put it on a 112 cab, run the two together. And that was compete with any drummer, easy. It was a loud amp. And there's no effects loop on this. There's a natural channel, which we'll do in a sec, but really it's just low, mid and high volume and gain. Simple. Straight sounds go straight to the speaker, which is a Celestion V30, and a lot of the orange amps in the noughties period, I think nearly all of them, was V30 speakers, and it's one of the, I think it's one of the English ones, the top quality one. An interesting thing with these amps, the Rocker 30, they stopped producing them basically, you know, towards the end of the 2009, 2010, I think, around that period. Stopped producing them because they were too expensive for them to make, because these were hand built in England at the time. But it was costing them money to build these things. That's how bomb proof and well built they are. And it's the same with all those orange amps from that period. Of course, they do a lot of overseas manufacturing now to keep costs down, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. The amps are perfectly fine, but it is interesting though, when it was made in England, this amp, they discontinue it. It's too expensive to bring in at a competitive price. So these are a little bit sought after. That's why I've kept hold of it. I do like it. It's something a bit different. All orange amps to me, you get attached to them because they just do something that the other amps, the other manufacturers don't do. And I think old Orangeade there should be applauded because the classic designs like the Rocker Verbs and all those kind of things, the Thunder amps, the ORs, absolutely brilliant amps, brilliant designs, and they're standing the test of time. And like I say, you do see orange all over the festival circuit these days, and they have done for a while. They've kind of usurped other brands a little bit in that way. Maybe not Fender so much, but some of the other brands. Fox are up there, I think, with them as well as kind of trendy amps. So yeah, orange, they fully deserved their reincarnation in the noughties under Orangeade, really. So his designs are brilliant. It was probably the little tiny Terra lunchbox. I don't know why I'm drawing it, but I'll draw it. There you are. There's a lunchbox amp. Here you go. The little tiny lunchbox, tiny Terra amps. I think that was like massive, massive hit and seller for them at the time. Little 15 watt that's as loud as anything. Unbelievable gain on that amp, and everybody was turning down at the time because there was just volume restrictions. So you could get one of these tiny terrors and stick it on a small cab, and it's still loud enough, but keeping the levels down a little bit. Those, I think they still make that amp now. I think they still do the tiny terror. Awesome things. So yeah, I think that was what spawned a lot of the reincarnation, but yeah, incredible. I should say one word about the 4x12 orange cabs. I've played through plenty of them over the years, like with valve heads and that, and they are incredible devices. Extremely loud, and they, again, there is one proviso, they're unbelievably heavy, those things. I've got a mate who's got one, puts it in a flight case. The idea you're wheeling that thing around on the floor, which is fine, but when you've got to lift it into a van or whatever, man, it's hernia city, that thing. It's incredibly heavy. With the flight case, it's, even with two men, it's amazing, but it's worth it if you don't mind the old bad bat, because the sounds of those things are absolutely outstanding, incredible. This again is made from the same sort of thick birch ply, and you get used to get on most of the orange amps. I'll be honest, I haven't checked the modern ones where they're sort of like fibre board, but this is certainly. But this weighs about 50. I think it's 53 or 54 pounds. On I looked it up. Is the official weight of it. That's astonishing for a 1x12 combo, especially one rated at 30 watts. So really, in a nutshell, I think Orange deserve their place in the Hall of Fame. We'll have a little look at the clean side of things. It's called Natural. I don't know why it's called Natural. Well, it is. It's just the straight valve sound. There's no preamp. There's no tone. If they'd have put a tone on the Natural channel, I think this would have gone up even higher in people's estimations. But of course, so would the cost. But let's get into that. I think it's quite a sterile, lifeless sound, but as a pedal platform, obviously it has its uses. But with Orange, as I say, it's all or nothing. You're either going flat out crazy, or you can get into the... So let's stick the Muffroom cloud on and see what we have. So, in the immortal words of Andy from Pro Shot Guitars, that's my clean sound, boys. No reverb on this amp, which again I think costs, but it would have been nice to have some reverb on it, but it hasn't. So, orange amps. Clifford Cooper, he must be so proud. I think he's still alive. I believe he's still alive. I believe he's in charge of the company still. Correct me on in the comments if I'm wrong or not. But, he must be proud of the lineage of Orange. They've had their ups and downs, but they're firmly here to stay now, which is great. And they are the funkiest looking amps ever. I mean, you're going to always look cool with one of these behind you. And I enjoyed the many years of playing this on stage. There's one thing, as I say, I did miss being able to turn down on the, because I do use the volume on the guitar a lot to clean it up, and that's the one thing that maybe change back to a more like a plexi style amps, Marshall amps, even some Fender style amps. But yeah, I love getting this out occasionally, having a blast on it. So Orange, you're a good one, and you are the first incumbent into the little Hall of Fame that this series is all about. Yes, so I'd just like to say thank you for all those subscribers. Thanks for being patient. I know the quality of the films isn't great at the moment. It's just on my phone, but we're going to see how we go with it. There's no point shelling out expensive gear until, you know, get into this thing, see how it works out. But I'm enjoying doing it, and I appreciate people take the time to watch the stuff, you know, because I do tend to ramble on a bit, but my enthusiasm, well, that's all there to see with all this guitar gear. So all that remains is for me to say tatty bye.